The sun cast a soft golden hue over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, Virginia, a town so small that every stranger felt like a disruption. Ethan Hayes stepped out of a dusty rental car, boots crunching gravel, his shoulders squared like a man who'd walked through fire and come out sharper. On this particular afternoon, Ethan wasn't wearing his navy blue ceremonial coat or precision-polished shoes. No white gloves, no gleaming buttons. Just a worn leather jacket, jeans, and a faded baseball cap pulled low. He looked like any tired traveler, but he wasn't. What the townspeople didn't know, what the sheriff's office would soon regret ignoring, was that Ethan was one of the elite. A tomb guard at Arlington National Cemetery, a soldier who marched 21 steps in silence to honor those who never came home. But today, he had only one mission: find a gift for his mother's birthday. As he pushed open the squeaky glass door of Whitaker's souvenir shop, a bell jingled overhead. The air smelled of stale coffee and faded glory. Flags hung from dusty hooks. Imitation medals glittered under yellow lights. Behind the counter stood Carl Whitaker, a wiry man in his 40s with a buzz cut and permanent scowl. His eyes narrowed at Ethan like he'd just stepped on sacred ground. "Can I help you?" Carl barked. "Just looking for something nice," Ethan replied evenly. "A necklace, maybe a flag pin?" Carl folded his arms. "Don't look like the gift-buying type. You military or something?" Ethan hesitated. "I serve," Carl scoffed. "Yeah? Weekend warrior or keyboard hero?" Ethan met his glare, calm, steady. "Tomb guard. Arlington." Carl smirked. "Yeah, right." Outside, the storm was already brewing. Carl Whitaker's laugh echoed off the shop's walls, a bitter, condescending sound that turned a few heads outside. "A tomb guard, huh? Please, those guys are real soldiers. You just look like some guy playing dress-up." Ethan didn't flinch. He'd stood motionless through rainstorms and snow, guarding the unknowns. He wasn't about to be rattled by a small-town shopkeeper. Still, he reached calmly into his back pocket and pulled out his military ID. Carl took it with a sneer, barely glancing at it before tossing it onto the counter like a used napkin. "Fake. Looks like you printed this off a computer." "That's a federal ID," Ethan said firmly. "You might want to take another look." Carl didn't. Instead, he grabbed the store phone. "Sheriff's office? Got a guy in here claiming he's military, but I think he's lying, probably casing the place. Send someone down." Ethan kept his hands visible. Calm, measured. His instincts kicked in. This wasn't a conversation anymore, it was a setup. Moments later, a red pickup with county decals pulled up out front. Two deputies stepped out. Deputy Randall, tall and broad with mirrored sunglasses, and Deputy Ellis, wiry, younger, and smirking like a kid who liked to break things. They entered quickly, hands already near their belts. Randall's voice was firm. "What's going on here?" Carl pointed. "That guy, causing a scene, claims he's some high-ranking soldier." "My ID's on the counter," Ethan said, voice steady. "I'm Staff Sergeant Ethan Hayes, Tomb Guard, U.S. Army." Ellis picked up the ID and snorted. "You expect us to believe this? You're dressed like a drifter?" Randall stepped forward. "Let's see your license." Ethan complied slowly. "Also got my federal orders." They didn't look twice. Randall skimmed the papers with disinterest. "These don't prove anything. Could have been printed at the library." Ethan's jaw tensed. "I'm on assignment. You can call Colonel James Monroe at Arlington. He'll verify." Ellis stepped closer, face smug. "You think name-dropping some colonel scares us? Turn around, hands behind your back." Ethan didn't move. "I'm not resisting. I'm asking you to confirm my ID before making a mistake." Randall didn't hesitate. "That's obstruction. You're under arrest." Before Ethan could respond, Ellis twisted his arm behind him, locking on the cuffs. Cold steel bit into his wrists, but he didn't resist. His breathing slowed. Trained, focused. Outside, a few townsfolk gathered, curious eyes peering through the windows. One old man in a Vietnam vet hat furrowed his brows. Something didn't sit right. Inside, the deputies stood over Ethan like conquerors. Ellis grinned. "Not so tough now, are you?" Carl smirked, arms crossed. "See? Told you he was lying." Then the shop door opened again. Sarah Coleman, 28, stepped inside, a local reporter with sharp brown eyes and a nose for injustice. She'd heard the call on her scanner and came running. Her phone was in her hand, already recording. "Excuse me," she said. "Is there a reason you're arresting this man?" Randall shot her a glare. "Back off, Mom. This isn't your business." "It is now," Sarah replied. "I know military ID when I see one. That looks real." Ethan glanced at her, giving the faintest nod. Sarah raised her phone higher, red light blinking. "This is being recorded and streamed." The deputies froze. The shop filled with tension. Randall's lips curled. "We don't care about your little video." Sarah didn't flinch. "Thousands are watching." Ellis turned to Ethan. "Still running your mouth? You're not going to bluff your way out." Ethan's voice remained steady. "Call the number on the back of my ID. Confirm with Arlington." Randall leaned close, his breath sharp with coffee. "You really think we're calling some DC hotshot for a guy who looks like he wandered in from a truck stop?" Sarah stepped in. "You're about to make a national mistake. That man is Ethan Hayes." Ellis blinked. "Who?" She stared him down. "Staff Sergeant Ethan Hayes, Tomb Guard, served 3 tours, Bronze Star. If you don't believe it, look him up." Carl scoffed. "I don't care who he is. He was acting suspicious." Sarah turned her camera to Carl. "Suspicious how?" Carl hesitated. He looked out of place. "You mean he's black, wearing a baseball cap, and quiet?" Sarah asked pointedly. Carl's face reddened. Outside, more people gathered. Word was spreading fast. Then a phone on the counter buzzed. Ethan's. Caller ID, Colonel James Monroe. Sarah lunged before Carl could grab it, holding it up. "You need to answer this. Now." Randall looked uncertain, but Ellis reached for the phone. Ethan's eyes locked on him. "You're going to want to stand at attention," Ellis scoffed. "What, is this your imaginary friend?" He answered. "Yeah?" The speaker crackled. A deep voice cut through the room like a blade. "This is Colonel James Monroe, Arlington National Cemetery. You are detaining a U.S. Army tomb guard under my command. Release him immediately." The deputies went pale. The shop was silent, save for the colonel's voice echoing through the phone. "I repeat, release Staff Sergeant Ethan Hayes, immediately, and prepare for federal oversight." Randall swallowed hard. "Sir, we didn't know. He didn't look." "Stop," Monroe snapped. "You had a federal ID and orders in your hands. You made a choice. Now deal with the consequences." The townspeople outside pressed against the glass, eyes wide. The Vietnam veteran stepped forward. "He's one of ours. Let him go." Inside, Ellis's hands trembled as he fumbled for the keys. With a clink, the cuffs came off. Ethan rubbed his wrists silently. The pain didn't matter, the insult did. Sarah held her phone steady. "Still streaming, officers." Randall looked ready to explode. "Fine, he's free to go." Ethan stepped forward calmly. "I never wanted trouble. I came to buy a gift for my mother." Carl muttered. "You think you're better than us?" Ethan met his gaze. "No. But I know better than to treat someone like less." Then 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Doors opened. Military police stepped out in crisp uniforms, flanking the final arrival, Colonel Monroe himself. The crowd parted like water. Monroe's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Which one of you arrested my soldier?" Randall stepped back. "We thought. You didn't think," Monroe barked. "You profiled. You ignored protocol. And now this town will answer for it." Carl's face drained of color. Sarah's phone stayed live. The nation was watching. Colonel Monroe walked straight to Ethan. "Sergeant Hayes, are you harmed?" "No, sir," Ethan replied. "Just humiliated." Monroe turned to the deputies. "You had every chance to de-escalate. Instead, you escalated a lawful visit into a federal incident." The military police surrounded Ethan protectively. "This shop, these men, all under investigation," Monroe said. "Effective immediately." Sarah narrated into her phone, voice calm but sharp. "Colonel Monroe has arrived. Staff Sergeant Hayes has been released. An official investigation is underway." Carl stepped back. "I was just looking out for my store." "No," Monroe said, eyes like steel. "You were looking through a lens of ignorance." The old veteran outside removed his hat, saluting Ethan. "Thank you, son." Others followed, placing hands over hearts. Shame and pride battled across the crowd's faces. Sarah approached Ethan as Monroe escorted him toward the SUV. "I'd like to interview you, off the record or on. Your story matters." Ethan gave her a faint nod. "Not for me, for the ones who can't speak." They drove off, leaving the town in stunned silence. Back inside, Carl stood alone, shop quiet for the first time all day. His flag-themed merchandise now felt like a mockery. He looked out at the dispersing crowd and realized he hadn't protected his town's values. He'd betrayed them. By dawn, Sarah's video had reached millions. Veterans groups flooded social media with support. Tomb Guard disrespected, unacceptable, one post read, already shared 40,000 times. News anchors replayed the clip, Ethan standing tall, cuffed, calm. The colonel's voice echoing through the store. The old veteran's salute. America watched and reacted. The governor issued a public statement. We must ensure those who serve are never treated like criminals for how they look. Sheriff Dan Carter faced a press mob. We regret this incident, he mumbled. One bold reporter asked, was race a factor? Carter's eyes darted. We're reviewing all conduct. The Justice Department launched an inquiry. Civil rights attorneys called it a textbook case of discrimination and misuse of power. Meanwhile, Ethan stood in the shadow of Arlington's sacred marble, back in uniform, white gloves on, weapon at his side. Colonel Monroe approached. You did everything right, Sergeant. I did it for the ones who can't speak, sir, Ethan replied. Monroe nodded. And today, you spoke for thousands. The tomb stood still. Ethan resumed his silent vigil. 21 steps, 21 seconds. The world was watching. But he wasn't marching for attention. He was marching for honor. The officers escorted John through the station, still unaware. Inside the holding cell, he sat upright, calm. Not a trace of panic. Just silence. A deep, uncomfortable silence that made even the other detainees glance his way. Then the door creaked open. Colonel Rachel Monroe stepped in. Her uniform was crisp. Her chest bore the Silver Star, the Distinguished Service Cross, and the rare blue and gold Sentinel Shield, the mark of those who'd commanded tomb guards. Her voice didn't rise. I want to speak to the man who arrested Sergeant John Carter. Everyone froze. He was cuffed on the street. For not moving fast enough, correct? No one replied. Rachel stepped forward. He guards the tomb of the unknown soldier. He trains soldiers to walk exactly 21 steps, the same steps your academy teaches you to march with pride. And you disrespected him. Her eyes locked onto the sergeant who'd mocked John earlier. Do you even know who you put in cuffs? The room went dead silent. Then, one officer slowly pulled off his cap, shame pouring from his face. Colonel Monroe gestured toward John's cell. Unlock that door, now. The officers scrambled, keys fumbled. Silence reigned. John stepped out slowly, offering a silent nod to Rachel. The kind only soldiers who've stood watch in storms exchange. Rachel turned to the commanding officer at the precinct. Do you know what a tomb guard endures? Rain, snow, 24-hour shifts. No breaks, no exceptions. They don't drink, smoke, curse, or falter. Her voice hardened. Yet you threw one in jail because your rookie got uncomfortable. The captain swallowed. We didn't know, ma'am. You never asked. That's worse. She pulled out her phone. I've already spoken to the Secretary of the Army. Expect a formal inquiry by morning. The rookie officer who'd mocked John tried to speak. Ma'am, Rachel cut him off. Save it. You don't speak over your superiors. Didn't they teach you that in the academy? John finally spoke, voice low but firm. Let this be a lesson. Never assume silence means weakness. Every badge in that room looked smaller now. John walked out of the station, not with anger, but with honor. The same slow, deliberate pace he used at Arlington. 21 steps. A pause. 21 steps. Behind him, Colonel Monroe followed silently. Even passing officers straightened their posture. Outside, a small crowd had gathered. A few had filmed what happened, but they put their phones down now, sensing this was no ordinary scene. This wasn't viral drama. It was reverence. A young cadet nearby, barely 19, whispered to his partner, "That's a real soldier." John paused briefly and turned to the crowd. He didn't give a speech. He simply placed a gloved hand over his heart and nodded. Then he turned to Rachel. "Thank you, Colonel, for remembering who we are." Rachel gave a faint smile. "We don't forget our own." And together, without another word, they walked down the precinct steps. Two warriors, forged by discipline, bonded by silence. The lesson had been delivered, loud and clear. Colonel Bradford stepped between the guards and Eli with a voice that cut through the chaos. "Remove those cuffs. Now." His tone didn't rise, but it had the kind of weight that made hearts skip. The younger officer hesitated, then looked at the lieutenant, who gave a reluctant nod. As the cuffs clicked open, Eli stood slowly, dignified, silent, his eyes never wavered. Bradford turned to the stunned tourists and officials, raising his voice just enough. "This man is not just a soldier. He's the embodiment of honor, a guard of the tomb, one of only a few to walk those 21 steps. And you handcuffed him for kneeling?" The silence was painful. Even the tourists realized they'd witnessed something ugly and foolish. "Sir," one officer stammered. "We thought—" "You didn't think," Bradford cut in. You assumed. Eli, still composed, turned to Bradford. Sir, permission to return to my post. The colonel placed a hand on his shoulder. Not yet. First, they need to see who you are. The crowd was now gathered at the base of the tomb steps. Officers, tourists, guards, all watched in silence. Colonel Bradford stepped back as Eli moved forward, his shoes hitting the stone with precision. 1, 2, 3, turning at 21. Flawless, mechanical, beautiful, a ritual of respect. The moment was heavy, not just with tradition, but with shame. The same man they judged had been honoring something far bigger than himself. Every step Eli took seemed louder now. The same officers who had cuffed him moments ago now stood at attention, unsure of where to look. As he completed the last turn, Eli paused, then snapped his heel, saluted, and returned to position. The crowd didn't cheer, they didn't need to, they just understood. Later, inside the Arlington barracks, the lieutenant knocked on Eli's locker room door. He entered with hesitation, a folded apology letter in hand. I didn't know who you were, he admitted. Eli didn't look up from unlacing his boots. That was the problem. The lieutenant looked down, then offered the letter anyway. I hope you'll accept this. Eli finally stood and faced him. Respect isn't something you only give to uniforms. It's given to people. There was nothing left to say. The lieutenant nodded, ashamed, and walked out. Colonel Bradford stood just outside. He met Eli's gaze and gave him a proud nod. No medals, no ceremony, just understanding between warriors. Word spread quickly. The incident made the rounds, not as a scandal, but as a lesson. Tourists posted videos not of confrontation, but of redemption, of a man walking 21 perfect steps, of a colonel standing tall, of dignity reclaimed. And Eli, he returned to his post. Every day, rain or shine. He never spoke of that afternoon again. He didn't need to, because every step he took reminded people that strength isn't always loud, that discipline doesn't wear anger, that honor, once questioned, shines even brighter. And those who watched, they never forgot the man they cuffed at the tomb, and what they learned about assumptions, silence, and respect.